You talked a little bit about culture of Silicon Valley. In your opinion, living here, growing up here, what makes Silicon Valley so special? Aside from, all these companies being started here in the tech boom, but what is it about Silicon Valley?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of an unfair advantage of having the history it does, right? So there's a huge network effect with these companies. Every time you build a company successfully, there's maybe 10, 15, 20 skills you probably needed to bring to the table at some point to make that company work. How do you manage a biz dev team in a certain type of situation to work really well with the rest of the company? How do you build a sales culture where the sales guys aren't becoming like the alpha males who are screwing up and taking over from the engineers, right? There's talking about that forever, right? But there's all sorts of these different interesting challenges. How do you find the right DevOps person for this? How do you find the right person who knows how to work with this part of the financial industry, who knows how to scale this thing? So there's just like all these skills here that we all have around us from having had a bunch of successes, and that ends up having this feedback effect where, when there's a problem for one of my companies, there's 15 people down the street who've done this before at scale for a multi-billion-dollar company. That's not the case in random parts of the US or random parts of the world, right? So being a place that keeps attracting all this top talent from around the world, having the best people here, and having the other successes to learn from, I think it's huge. And so you still have by far the most value being created in Silicon Valley versus anywhere else. I think the other side of the coin, which is probably one of my biggest issues I'm obsessed with, is that we need to keep Silicon Valley affordable, and we need to keep immigration functioning. Otherwise, we're not going to continue to be the best. We need to keep bringing the best people here. We need to make it so people can afford to live here, and we need to build more. So that's something that we're trying to work on.
How do you do that? What are some of your...
Well, I mean, I'm having this argument with my friend Mark Andreessen and Hamant on email yesterday, where I'm trying to bring a bunch of friends to a dinner with our state senator in SF because we're trying to pass the Sacramento legislation that allows you to change the zoning so people who own land near transit can build up to Paris level density. So we want to be able to build 5-story density anywhere near transit. And what that would do, it would majorly reduce the cost of rent and living here. And it would actually take a lot of cars off the streets because you can live closer to your work then, and you can use transit. And so this would be huge for the area. And there's just a lot of really interesting, complicated political dynamics to trying to get that done. There's a lot of people both on the left and the right. This is not a left-right issue. It's an issue of, there's a lot of people who already own homes from both political parties that really want there not to be more building. They want to keep the value of their home higher. But I think it's just, as an economic area overall, we have to do this if we're going to keep growing and succeeding. So this is kind of a big battle going on right now. And ultimately, if you care about helping create opportunity for the bottom of society, and you care about this being an area that continues to be number one in the world, I think hopefully we'll win and be able to build more here. But it's a big fight.
Now, for early stage founders, do you think it's crucial for them to be here in the early days? I've seen a lot of companies just start here and then move.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what they're doing. For certain parts of bio IT, I think it's like right now, which is the hottest, really complicated area. There's just certain talents at UCSF and Stanford and Berkeley, and there's certain people here who have abilities that you're not going to find anywhere else in the world. Maybe MIT, but even here is an advantage over that. But if you're not, so I think for certain things you absolutely have to be here. If you're doing something where you really need like the very best engineers, and it's just such a hard problem you're solving, and you need like 10 or 20 of them, and you need to be able to scale that probably has to be here too. If you're doing something that needs to learn from the very top people at Google and Facebook, et cetera, you need to be here. That said, there's probably a lot of like vertical enterprise companies that are great companies that shouldn't be here. So my wife and I started something last year in what's called the regulatory tech space, where we're trying to fix how the administrative state works in a bunch of states and in the federal government. It's a longer conversation, but it's a pretty cool vertical enterprise company. And we started it in Austin, Texas, because we thought that was a much better place to build that type of company. I need great engineers. I don't need like the hardest possible problems and the very best people from Google and Facebook to help us scale, right? And so I think it's actually much less expensive and much more feasible not to build it here, thanks to how expensive it is, right? Thanks to the crisis. So I think there's certain companies that I would only invest in here right now, but there's a lot of places you can build otherwise that I'm perfectly bullish on.
I think, so a lot of the opportunities that you've created and capitalized on have been here in the United States. Are you looking, around the world, different markets with companies that you fund? Well,
it's really hard. So when you're funding things and you're going based on like the team, the strength of the team and the culture and the things that we know, it's really hard for me to judge that for like a random group of people from Brazil. They might be like the most amazing people ever, but like a lot of times when we meet teams at the Series A and Series B, like if any of you are starting a company now in the seed stage, we're probably not going to know who you are, and that's fine. And we participate and see things that are interesting with small amounts of people. But if it's Series A and there's 15 people, we could figure out, there's probably, if you're hiring great engineers, for example, there's going to be like a few of those people who are tied to people or programs we know most likely. So it becomes this thing where within our own ecosystem, we're very good at evaluating groups and networks, and I'll get notes from my friends who are founders of companies. Oh, my best engineer is going to this, or his friend's going to this, and then we track what's going on, right? So one of our competitive advantages is understanding the talent ecosystem, and we do that in the Waterloo ecosystem, we do that in the Texas ecosystem, we do that here, we do that in Seattle and MIT and New York. So we have like 6, 7 places where we're probably putting in ties, but it's impossible for me to do that. I don't speak Chinese, right? I can't really do that in China. I'm sure there's great things to invest in there, but it's not my network.
Now in terms of opportunity and big problems to solve for the world, do you see that as a thing you'll start getting yourself into more, or you'll?
Yeah, no. I mean, a lot of the companies that I've helped start or that we invest in are definitely focused in these policy areas. One area you kind of mentioned, this transportation thing. I'm sure you guys have heard of like various things going on there. We have what I think is the best eVTOL company, which is electric vertical takeoff and landing. We have a prototype, this thing that goes 200 miles an hour, and it's winged, right? So it takes off vertically, and then the propellers kind of tilt, and it goes forward, and it lands. We can go for an hour, 200 miles an hour. We're 100 times quieter than a helicopter. We're cheaper and safer than a helicopter. So, and then on top of that, in transportation, we have like there's these tunnels companies where we worked on them very famously. Elon's working on one that I'm quite excited about. So like transportation is like a whole area of focus. There's criminal justice reform. There's things we're doing there. There's this regulatory thing I mentioned and other GovTech things. So yeah, there's a lot of the things that we're focused on do have these policy implications. It's not, our fund is economically wants to make money, but I think the way you make money is by solving problems that matter. And some of those problems that matter are fixing things in finance. Most of you probably don't care about fixing the insurance industry and making it work better, but it probably is actually really good for the world to do that too. So I'm not only limited to kind of the soft sounding like policy things, but in general, things that solve problems are good things to do.